Here's the tarot card, the Wheel of Fortune, which carries over the symbolism of the 4 ages of the world. We have the wheel within the wheel again. Lots of interesting symbolism there. We find the Sphinx, which I regard as a symbol of the 4 seasons of the great year. We have Typhon on the right, that orange, strange-looking creature. Typhon was a monster in Greek mythology that had fought a great cosmic war with Zeus and was eventually vanquished. And of course we have the serpent, which is Nahash, the serpent, which had played such an important role in creation myths in ancient cultures all over the world. I believe the basis of this card is the idea that the great year, the wheel of the great year, is like the wheel of fortune. And as it turns, you know, it's going to determine the fortune of life on planet Earth and the fortunes of, you know, human societies on Earth. And some of the more detailed analysis of some of what's going on, but we're not going to spend time on that. The Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiche Maya, still exists, and herein we find the same doctrines as in Egypt and other parts of the world. The learned men of Maya state that they imagined in remote ages that the vault of heaven was sustained by 4 pillars. We find various Native American tribes with a similar concept, the 4 pillars that sustain the vault of heaven, and that at these certain crucial times within this great cyclical wheel, something causes the pillars to collapse temporarily. And this is when the stars of heaven fall to earth. And the old order of things is erased, and a new order of ages is inaugurated. We will keep going. This is the Mithraic tradition, which takes us back to that 6,000 year ago event, I believe. Mithras, you see, slaying the bull. The bull is which sign? Taurus, of course. And we see the royal arch, which is the vault of heaven. We see the 7 stars, which typically symbolize the Pleiades, the 7 visible stars of the Pleiades. Sometimes 7 stars can represent the 7 stars of Ursa Major, the Great Bear. Usually in this context, they represent the Pleiades. This is actually a depiction in symbolism of a cosmic event. And we see the slaying of the bull and the bull's blood flowing out here to the ground. This is something we get into in advanced programs that I do, analyzing this symbolism. But for now, just when you begin to see these various imagery from the ancient world, one of the components that you find redundantly represented is this idea of the cyclical changes of time. And you can notice up here the solar nimbus, there's the lunar crescent, and you notice there's other things here. The bull's tail looks like a stalk of wheat. We see the scorpion there. We see this is the same serpent that was crawling along the wheel of fortune. So all of these symbols are cognate. And once you begin to learn to read the language of symbolism, of archaic symbolism, things like this will begin to actually speak to you. Scholar Donald A. McKenzie had been studying the myths of pre-Columbian America, wrote back in 1923, it has been noted that the duration of the first age is the same in Mexico and India, namely 4,800 years. The Indian system gives the length of the 4 yugas as 4,320,000 years of mortals, which equal 12,000 divine years. And as I talked about earlier, in Babylonia, Egypt, India, and Mexico, the year was one of 360 days, to which 5 godless or unlucky days were added, during which no laws obtained. That the Mexicans should have originated this system quite independently is difficult to believe. But this was consistent with ancient societies all over the world, was to recognize these 2 interlocking cycles, which generally a secular cycle and a sacred cycle. Let's keep going. There's so much here that's good. But Alexander Polyhistor, in his commentaries on Berossus, in the second book, was the history of the 10 kings of the Chaldeans and the periods of each reign, which consisted collectively of 120 shars, or 432,000 years, reaching to the time of the deluge. Now, the important fact remains that the Greek, Celtic, Indian, and Mexican doctrines are essentially the same and have evidently derived from a common source. Time was equaled with space, and 12 times 30 gave 360 days for the year. In Babylonia, Egypt, India, and Mexico, the year was one of 360 days, to which 5 godless or unlucky days were added, during which no laws obtained. Let's just proceed on here. Okay, here are some of the ancient time cycles that still, if we look at the decans, they're still used in astrology to determine their periods of time represented in astrology. And it represents 10 degrees of the ecliptic, 1 decan. So in terms of the Platonic cycle, if you had the 25,920 year cycle and you divided it into 10 degrees of the ecliptic, or 1/36th part, it gives us 320 years. And then 2 decans are going to be 1,440. 3 is going to be the Platonic month, which is 2,160. So there we're talking about the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius, the age of Aries, etc. The Saros cycle was another cycle recognized by ancient Middle Eastern cultures. It was 3,600 years. The Platonic months, there was the season of 6,480, and then one great year, Platonic year, was 25,920. So what they did was they chose to measure space and time using the same set of numbers. Like it said in here in this previous quote right here, time was equaled with space. Okay, so let me grab my my box here. I'll pull out some of the 5 Platonic solids, which are the forms that Plato studied and wrote about. Starting with the simplest, there's only 5. There can only be 5 mathematically. But the regular polyhedra, this was a tetrahedron, 4 faces, all identical, 1, 2, 3, 4. Each of them is triangular, an equilateral triangle, so you had 60, 60, 60, right? Is there anybody here who knows how to operate a calculator? Who? Okay, good. I'm so proud of you. Okay, let's do this, Alon, so that they don't think I'm making all this up, which, of course, I do make some of this stuff up from time to time just to see who's on their toes. Not really. Okay, we've got 60, 60, 60 is 180. 4 faces, so 4 times 180 is the total number of degrees measuring the tetrahedron. Going back to the time of the Sumerians. So what's the total number of degrees that measures the tetrahedron? 720, okay, which we've discovered is the same number that measures 1 decan, or 10 degrees of the ecliptic. Let's move up to, how about the octahedron? Oct means what? 8. So here we have equilateral triangles, 4 of them clustered around each vertex, total of 8 sides, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 60, 60, and 60, so 180 times 8.
Sorry, hang on. Couldn't find the 8.
1,440 degrees measures the octahedron. Okay, these are the building blocks of, according to Plato, these are the building blocks of creation. Okay, then let's see. Oh, how about the cube? Let's take our cube. Well, cube is 6 faces, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And each face has a 90-degree corner. So we have 4 times 90, which should be 360. And then we have 6 times 360 being the total number of degrees measuring the cube. 2160. Okay, we discovered that the cube then has the same measure in degrees as a Platonic month does in years. Okay, then I'm going to pull out my icosahedron. You know this was an icosahedron? Okay, icosa or icosahedron. Icosa means 20, so there's 20 faces. And they're all equilateral triangles. So we have 60, 60, 60 again, 180. And this will be times 120, times 20 will give us the total number of degrees in the icosahedron. 3,600. There's this ancient Saros cycle. And then finally, we have my favorite of all,